Before the 1440s, creating a book was a wonderfully inefficient process. It involved a monk, a goose feather, and years of life spent getting hand cramps in a freezing monastery. Information moved at the speed of a tired man on a horse. This system was perfect for ensuring stability, because when it takes a decade to copy one book, you tend to be very selective about which books you copy. The Catholic Church, conveniently, was the one doing the selecting. This meant the official narrative was the only narrative. A beautifully simple, tidy, and intellectually stagnant world. Truly a golden age, if you didn't like thinking. Enter Johannes Gutenberg. He wasn't a philosopher king trying to enlighten the masses. He was a goldsmith and businessman from Mainz who was, to put it mildly, terrible with money. He defaulted on loans and got tangled in lawsuits. His invention of movable type wasn't born from a divine vision. It was a desperate attempt to find a business that actually turned the profit. He combined the power of a wine press with the precision of a coin punch and the metallurgy of goldsmithing. His goal wasn't revolution. It was to create luxury goods, specifically beautiful Bibles for wealthy churches faster than any monk could. He was trying to disrupt the scribe market, not the papacy. Sure, the Gutenberg Bible was the flagship product, a masterpiece of art and technology. But what really paid the bills? Indulgences. Those little slips of paper sold by the church that promised to reduce your time in purgatory. Before Gutenberg, they were handwritten and bespoke. The printing press turned them into a mass-produced commodity. It was the 15th century equivalent of a video game microtransaction, and business was booming. The irony is spectacular. The very machine that would fuel the Reformation's critique of church corruption got its start by helping the church monetize forgiveness on an industrial scale. Humans have always been good at this sort of thing. Then came Martin Luther in 1517. He was an Augustinian monk and theology professor, and he had some notes. 95 of them, to be exact. He allegedly nailed them to the church door in Wittenberg, which was the academic equivalent of posting on a university message board. He wrote them in Latin for other academics, but some enterprising printers saw the potential. They translated the theses into German, printed them, and suddenly Luther's academic squabble went viral. Within weeks, copies were everywhere from Germany to England. Luther had no control over it. He had lit a match, and the printing press was the gasoline-soaked forest he hadn't realized he was standing in. Luther's next brilliant move was translating the New Testament into German in 1522. This was a catastrophic success. For the first time, regular people could read the foundational text of their entire society for themselves. They no longer needed a priest to interpret it for them. The result? Chaos. Without a central authority to dictate the correct interpretation, people started having their own ideas. Anabaptists, Zwinglians, Calvinists, new denominations popped up like mushrooms. Everyone with a Bible and an opinion became a theologian. It was the decentralization of religious truth, and it led to a century of people killing each other over pronoun disagreements in Scripture. The common folk read Luther's German Bible, and they found some very interesting passages. Stuff about all men being equal in the eyes of God, and the meek inheriting the earth. They looked at their feudal lords, their crushing taxes, and their miserable lives, and thought, hey, wait a minute. In 1524, the German Peasants' War erupted. Fueled by printed manifestos like the 12 Articles, it was one of the largest popular uprisings in European history. And Luther? He was horrified. He furiously penned a pamphlet titled "Against the Murderous, Thieving Hordes of Peasants," urging the nobles to crush the rebellion. A classic case of an influencer being shocked when their followers take their message to its logical conclusion. The Reformation wasn't some high-minded theological debate. It was a vicious, no-holds-barred propaganda war fought with cheap pamphlets and woodcut illustrations. This was the birth of the political cartoon, and they were brutal. One popular woodcut showed the Pope as a monster being excreted from the backside of a demon. Another portrayed Martin Luther as a seven-headed beast, each head spouting a different heresy. These weren't arguments, they were memes designed to bypass reason and hit you straight in the amygdala. They proved that as soon as you give humanity a tool for mass communication, the first thing we'll do is draw unflattering pictures of our enemies. Of course, it wasn't just religious propaganda that went viral. In 1487, two Dominican inquisitors wrote a book called the Malleus Maleficarum, or the Hammer of Witches. Before printing, it was an obscure and nasty text. The press turned it into an international bestseller, second only to the Bible in some regions for a time. It was a detailed, step-by-step manual on how to find, prosecute, and execute witches. It gave a veneer of legal and theological legitimacy to local superstitions and misogyny. The press didn't invent the witch craze, but it standardized it, scaled it up, and spread it like a plague across Europe, resulting in tens of thousands of horrific deaths. Suddenly, every king, prince, and pope realized they had lost control of the narrative. Their solution was brilliantly predictable: censorship. The Catholic Church created the Index Librorum Prohibitorum, a list of forbidden books. Reading anything on the list was a one-way ticket to excommunication. Secular rulers started requiring official licenses to operate a printing press. But it was too late. The technology was out there. For every licensed printer in the capital, there were two illicit ones in a basement somewhere else churning out banned material. It was the beginning of the endless war between information and authority has been losing ever since. But the chaos engine had an upside. The scientific revolution couldn't have happened without the printing press. Nicholas Copernicus could print "On the Revolutions of the Heavenly Spheres" and distribute it to astronomers across Europe before the church could react. Andreas Vesalius could publish his groundbreaking anatomical textbook De Humani Corporis Fabrica with detailed illustrations. This meant scientists could collaborate, build on each other's work, and check each other's data. An idea was no longer a fragile thing living in one person's head. Once it was printed in a few hundred copies, it was basically indestructible. The press gave facts a fighting chance against faith and tradition. Here's a weird side effect nobody saw coming. The printing press helped invent modern countries. Before print, languages were a messy soup of local dialects. A person from Munich couldn't easily understand someone from Hamburg. But printers, wanting the biggest possible market, started to standardize. They published books and dictionaries in a common dialect. Luther's Bible did this for German. The King James Bible for English. Suddenly, millions of people who would never meet were reading the same words and sharing the same stories. They started to think of themselves as a single people, a nation. And nationalism has, of course, always been a very calm and unifying force throughout history. So, Gutenberg's invention. Was it good? It gave us the scientific revolution, the Enlightenment, and widespread literacy. It also gave us a century of brutal religious warfare, witch hunts fueled by bestsellers, and propaganda that would make modern trolls blush. It didn't create new human virtues or vices, it just took the ones we already had and put them on an industrial scale. The press was the ultimate amplifier. It was an upgrade for the human operating system, but it came with no patch for our bugs. It simply made us more of what we already were: brilliant, creative, tribal, and terrifyingly susceptible to bad ideas. And we've been running that same chaotic software ever since. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe to our channel for more historical insights. Thanks for watching, nerds!